This is a Defocus media production.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a fantastic week, and I hope that you're looking at this week for an opportunity to change a life, for an opportunity to change the industry. And today's guest has really changed the industry. Some of you may not know that yet, but once we dive deep into this podcast, you will understand exactly where I'm coming from. You will have a new mindset, and you will work with us to change this industry. Friends and family, I want to welcome my colleague, my friend, Charlene Nichols. How are you doing today, Charlene?
Well, after an introduction like that, I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me today. This is like a bucket list. I've seen you do so many of these interviews, and I really truly have thought, wow, I hope one day I can, get to a point in the industry where I can earn a spot on your podcast. So thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity today.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me. I've wanted to have you on the show for quite a bit of time now. I know our schedules have kind of been all over the place, but that's what happens when you're making an impact in the industry, right? You're always going, you're always moving, but it's time to really have a great conversation. And that's why we had to make this opportunity take place today. Before we get started, Charlene, I know you well. I've gotten to know you better over the last couple of years, but really in the last 6 months, I've really been able to dive deep into knowing who you are as a person and knowing the impact that you made in the industry. And some folks may not know who you are, Charlene, and I would love for you maybe to share the extensive background that you have in eye care.
It's really hard to encapsulate without going on and on, so I'll just keep it really short by saying it has always been my passion to provide solutions. I've always been client facing. And when I say client facing, I mean, you guys, your patients and your clients are your clients. You guys are my clients. So my whole career, I've been working with opticians and optometrists very directly, mostly owners. And I started my career for like 2 decades providing optical consumables. And I started with a company you guys all probably know, Optisource. They've been around. Oh, I'm going to get choked up. It was a long time that I was with them. And I kind of built a name there. And it's funny. For those of you who don't know, Optisource is an incredible company because the owner, Daryl Squicciarini, and the previous owner, Joe Ialachi, president now, they really kind of groomed us from a very young age to be to really treat what we did as a business. So even though, most of us were very young, we all kind of started with the company when they were bootstrapped entrepreneurs. They really encouraged us to come in every day. And it's funny, there was a mission statement on the wall, and it was right when you come into the vestibule. And one of the things they said, and they declared this before any of this happened, is one day we industry leaders will seek us out, and people from the industry will come to look at us for solutions. And at the moment when that was on the wall, we had like 7 products. And to this day, Optisource has thousands and thousands and thousands of products. And as we grew as a company, I was one of the people who they leaned on when new products were being introduced. It was my responsibility with my customer base and my ability to kind of mentor my peers to come up with unique strategies to introduce these ideas to the industry. So I kind of had that skill set grained in because for those of you who know the comeuppance of Optisource, they introduced a lot of new products to the industry, a lot of solutions, all off marking ink remover, snap it screws. These were solutions that I got to see like behind the scenes when the company was developing these innovations, and then the strategies, and then implementing them, and then seeing them change the industry. So coming up with innovative ideas to empower and help the industry was not something new to me. It's something that I worked with a company for years to do. I just decided at a certain point, 20 years is a long time in a profession. And, when you hit a ceiling in your career, you have to have a discussion with your supervisors to decide what does the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years look like? And it just, that was it. Like, that's where I was. And they were very honest with me. You're doing really good here, and you'll be doing really good for the next 20 years. I said, no, I think there might be something else for me. And I just didn't know what that looked like at all. I know a lot of people have heard me tell this story, and maybe not a lot of them understand the gravity of this, but walking away from 20 years of your life and everything that you know, and your career and your, finances, all of that, just because something is calling you. It's a big step. And it was the smartest decision I ever made in my life. It was the scariest. It was the most humbling. To go from being number one for 20 years, pulling into the number one spot, to being a bootstrap, ramen eating entrepreneur. It's a big change. And it made me realize that there are a lot of luxuries that you are afforded working for a big company. Absolutely. And when you lose those, you really have to go back to just who you are. Yeah. That was all I had. I didn't have the credit cards. I didn't have the, open doors to the boardrooms. I didn't have the name anymore. I gave all that up. And I came into the same industry, but I came in without my name and without my company behind me. I had to come in as Charlene Nichols. I was Charlene Friend my entire career. That was my identity. And I let all of that go. And I started over. And we're here today, so I guess maybe it was a really good decision.
Yeah. I love this story, and I have constant communication with students, and I was just up at New England College of Optometry, hanging out with the students for a cookout. Got to sit down and have conversation with the first years, second years, third years, and fourth years, and I went up there to represent my brand, my eye doctor, right? The one thing I always tell students is, to your point, you got to understand who you are as a brand. And I'm a firm believer that you have to build your brand first before you go to another brand. And you got to make sure that your purpose and that brand's purpose both align with each other. Because when you do that, if you do decide to make that jump, you've already built a brand that's a recognized brand, a known brand, a trustworthy brand. And that's the key to be able to make that soft landing, or make that landing a little softer, because if not, sometimes it can be a little more difficult. But when I hear this story, I just hear that you found your purpose, and you knew what your purpose was, and you went that direction. And that's exactly what we should be doing in life. We should be pursuing what our purpose is and developing core values to hold us accountable to what our purpose is, to make sure that we always keep that purpose and that vision on track. So I appreciate that you really share that story, because a lot of folks are looking to make that jump, but they're a little scared because they're used to that cushy job and that cushy position. But when it's your purpose, you got to make that jump. Now, go ahead.
I don't share this a lot, so I'll share it in the most universal way possible. But I think universal alignment is something that people can identify with, whether they're looking at universal alignment from a spiritual perspective or a religious perspective or just a human perspective. Yeah. And there were some very clear signals from the universe. I mean, right down to somebody on an interview literally looking at me and telling me that God spoke to him and told him I was in the right place when I was like on the fence about leaving. And it was probably the most profound moment in my life. It's crazy when I say it out loud, but and it's recently I've had like three people in the last 2 weeks and that don't know each other say to me, you're in the right place. So it's like when you're really truly aligned with your purpose, Daryl, and you're absolutely right, the universe gives you all of these validations, and it's just important to listen, to be present, so you can really not miss those beautiful moments in your life.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we're just too safe. I was watching something on Facebook the other day, and it was Steve Harvey. He was doing an interview on a Steve Harvey show, and a guy was in the audience, and the guy was saying, hey, you know what? I'm in between jobs. I go to a job and they tell me I'm overqualified. Then I go to another job and they tell me I'm underqualified. and I can't get a job because I'm like right in the middle. And Steve Harvey was like, he said, well, what is it that you like to do? What are you great at? What's your gift? And the guy said, well, I'm great in the kitchen. I know how to cook extremely well. And then Steve Harvey asked him, he said, so what are you doing for a living? He said, well, I sell used goods or something like that. And he said, well, if that's not a smack in your face, isn't that someone telling you that you need to live your purpose? You need to go cook. You need to step away from that job. The reason why you can't find something because the world is trying to tell you something differently, and you need to make that jump. And the guy sat down and thought about it, and he smiled, and you could tell that he had that motivation to go to the next level. He had that motivation to go out and maybe go to school to learn how to become a cook, or go into that industry a little bit more and stop being scared. Sometimes we just got to listen to our environment and those people that really love us, that know what our purpose is, even though sometimes we don't see it.
And what I love about that is it just as much as it is evident when you are in the wrong place by the people that you're surrounded with and the situations that you're surrounded with and the problems that you're surrounded with. It is equally as evident when you are in the right place. There are people that I am surrounded by every day that are absolute blessings in my life. And I think about the quality of the people that I'm surrounded with, and I'm just so blessed. Yeah. And there was a time in my life where I was just hoping I could meet some better people. Like, please, Lord. But the difference was me. I mean, I really had to do a lot of inner healing and a lot of self-work, and I'm still doing it to this day. My biggest challenge to overcome, and it took me a very long time, long after becoming an entrepreneur, to do this, is to just believe in myself. And that might be hard for people to believe because I'm building a metaverse, but yeah. Seriously, for a long time, I suffered from imposter syndrome. And this is not a joke. This is a terrible, terrible thing that a lot of people, especially people in minority positions, deal with. As a woman, it was very hard for me to say things out loud without feeling like people would think that I was being foolish. And the more fearless you are, the more you're able to really believe the things that inside of you, you're capable of. And it's just, it's scary, it's difficult, it's sometimes suffocating, but if you can get past that and just own it, it's liberating. It really is.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, imposter syndrome is the real deal. I mean, it has really taken some people's careers away, has ended dreams, it has ended, people's purpose, because they haven't been able to overcome it. And to your point, you have to believe in yourself, but you also got to surround yourself with the right people, people that believe in you, and the right mentors that have maybe experienced some of the things that you want to do, because they can help guide and put you in the right direction, connect you with the right people. But when you see yourself and your mentor, you know that you can reach that next level. You can approach what you're trying to do. So I'm glad that you've been very transparent and candid, because there's going to be someone that's out there, a young woman that's an entrepreneur, that's saying the same thing. And that comment that you just made is going to change their life, and it's going to change their career, and it's going to elevate their career to be able to do whatever they want to do in this world. Now, I want to circle back to something you touched on, metaverse. I want to have a just broad, kind of somewhat high level conversation about what the metaverse is. At the top of the show, I mentioned, you're someone that's going to change the industry. You're going to change the narrative. And I know you're going to make that happen through the metaverse. You've already done it just with your relationships that you develop over time, but you've done some amazing things. And the metaverse, the optical metaverse, is just, really getting the party started. So if you don't mind maybe sharing, what the metaverse looks like to you, what you've done with the optical metaverse, and maybe where you think it's going. And then I'd like to kind of dive into some other things that I think is very important that's going to be a result of what the metaverse is going to produce.
Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity. And it's interesting. You'll hear me use this term a lot, and it's a term I've been encouraged to use by leaders in the metaverse industry who are hearing some of the broader challenges that the world is having, not just optical and optometry related. And one of the hot topics right now, when we talk about sustainability and security with the metaverse, is visualization. Now, when I was presented with the challenge to dig deep into this context, I took it very seriously because I didn't know a lot about visualization, not as much as I know now. But I knew enough to know I should not talk about this unless I did my research first. I'm mentioning this because the optical metaverse is a representation of the way that I envision the industry. Now, for those of you who get to come on October 7th, which is free, so hopefully you're there, the very first thing you'll see is something that looks very much like New York City. It is actually a digital twin of Manhattan. When I was a kid and I was a professional, the very first time that I felt like a real professional, like a woman that was a part of this industry that had a career trajectory in front of her, was when I went to Vision Expo in New York. And it was like I went there with my suit and the sounds and the taxi cabs and the other people in the industry, and it was just really one of the most profound moments of my life. So when I think about, now that I understand visualization, which I didn't really understand when I was building this, I think that's why I put that there. It was like a memory that I connected with the optical metaverse. Now, let me kind of put some context around why I'm saying this. There are millions of other, maybe not millions, but hundreds of other metaverses out there. And there is this really strong theory that there's only one metaverse. So when I use the term metaverse, it's more synonymous with virtual world than it is with the network with which everyone is referring to the metaverse, which is in the latter context, synonymous with the internet. So you can kind of use the word metaverse in relationship to like the internet. So you could talk about Web 2, Web 3. Web 2 is the internet. Web 3 is the metaverse. But then you'll hear people using the word metaverse when it comes to virtual worlds. There are multiple virtual worlds. And you'll hear a lot of terms being thrown out. I'm sure you're starting to hear them now. Interoperability, accessibility. These are all words that even the experts who are using them haven't even really begun to understand. So all of these virtual worlds, all of these metaverses, if you will, and spatial, exclusable. Now you've got into these really unique virtual worlds that are like very niche oriented. They've got almost for every niche, there's a virtual world or metaverse, however you want to use that term. There's ones related around space, related around video games, related around sports, whatever. And it's kind of like the person who developed it or the team who developed it is literally giving you a journey into their imagination and letting you participate in it. It's pretty profound when you think about the tools that we now have as individuals to flip the lens around and share our perspective, something that you almost can't possibly imagine ever sharing to somebody, and you project it to the world.
I love that. And when you say that, Charlene, one thing that pops to mind is really communication, right? You mentioned flipping the lens around. So imagine being able to see the world through your patient's lens, right? Imagine being able to see the world through your family's lens, right? These are key things that can really enhance patient care. So I'd love to talk about what communication or what the metaverse does when it comes to communication.
Oh my goodness, we don't have enough time for that, and that might be another subject for a panel. But let's stick with the flip the lens around scenario.
Okay.
And we're gonna make this interactive. So
Okay.
give me a time in your profession that you remember really needing a patient to understand that the implications of something you were telling them, and you just knew they weren't getting it, and you knew that lack of comprehension could potentially mean that they were not going to get the care that they needed. And maybe let's say that it would have led to something catastrophic like blindness or some sort of other really catastrophic result. Can you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we could take something real basic. Not wearing glasses. Patients that come in and you prescribe something and they're not wearing their glasses. I mean, you go out, you can't see, you get in a car accident, you could hurt yourself or you could hurt someone else. There's one option right there.
Perfect.
For you.
That's an easy one. That one I can do in my sleep. So you now say to the patient, you really need glasses. And they say, I'll take the prescription. I'll go online. And you say, yeah, but you really need to get them adjusted properly. So you really need to get them here. And they say, I bought them from Warby before. It's no problem. Oh, you mean these ones, the ones who you brought in here with me? Yes. Oh, just so you know, those are off by like about 20-30% of what your actual prescription should be. And because they're ill proper and they're fit, you're not even getting the optimal advantage. Oh, but it's okay. It's okay, Dr. Glover. Okay, so let's try something new, patient. I'm going to go ahead and sit you down at this game, this simulator. And I'm going to let you do this quick little, it's like a 5-second exercise. You're going to go around the race course and you're going to do it once. And you're going to see the screen the way you should see it in perfect vision. And then we're going to distort it by just the same amount that you would potentially have if you were driving on the road in bad lighting conditions on a bad weather situation. Because we're not talking about how well do you see today in my fluorescent lighting with me here and with very little pressure on you. We're talking about how are you going to see the next time you're on the road at night when you're trying to get home and you're tired and you know, your glasses are dirty because clearly you don't know how to clean them. And it's raining and it's foggy and you just happen to be looking at your text while driving. Let's simulate those two scenarios and let's see which one you feel you would more likely be willing to do. And is that going to prove to everyone that they should do the things that you're suggesting to them? No, but it is definitely going to give them a better understanding of what that really means. Because the problem is most people, specifically when it comes to eye care, they don't really understand the gravity of what you're saying until it's too late.
Right. A lot of times when they're coming in, it's already too late, right? Especially your diabetic patients that have diabetes that's not controlled. They come in, they have diabetic retinopathy. They already have a retinal tear breaker detachment, or they've had a history of diabetic retinopathy and so many laser treatments that, you know, the retina is just dead, right? So yeah, that's a great point. But communication is king. You know, it's one of those things where in the exam lane, we cannot continue to communicate the same way, right? We have to be able to spice it up. We have to be able to change it. We have to be able to meet our patients where they hang out at, right? Whether that's the metaverse, whether that's at their job, whatever it may be, we have to start thinking like patients, but we also have to educate and bring more awareness to some of the cutting edge technology that's out there, because you'll be amazed what might take place in regards to patient education, compliance, and a lot of other things as well.
It's so important that you're saying this. Now, here's the thing, and this is just a theory, but I think I'd love to hear your feedback on this.
Yeah, far away.
Eye care professionals talk to each other all day long about these things, right? Yeah. You could talk at great length and you can enjoy it about the subject of macular degeneration, about contrast sensitivity, about all of these different aspects of your vision care. But maybe there's a lot of eye care professionals that don't realize that it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to Google this stuff and get information that the patient can actually understand enough to get enough information when you're not there to nudge them that they actually feel compelled to do something about it. And this kind of leans into the content creation aspect of the metaverse. We just did not do a good job as an industry communicating all of the wonderful things that we talk about amongst ourselves to the world, mostly because we just hate the dirty D word, digital. We hate it. We hate everything digital. We hate the internet. We hate Facebook. We hate shopping online, with the exception of the 3 Amazon packages that are sitting on our front door.
Well, you know, I agree. And, you know, you mentioned digital, and I know you mentioned this organization earlier, Warby Parker. You know, I love what Warby Parker did when they came into our industry. They shook it up, right? They created more awareness for the eye care industry to put patients in the exam lane or to even think about glasses because of their digital presence. They did a fantastic job with that. And that has helped to elevate patient care, but also bring in a different demographic of patients that wasn't really getting their eyes examined, right? And you can see over time as they kind of shifted from an online model to being more brick and mortar, because they understand the importance of bringing that patient in and providing that experience as well. So when it comes to, you know, that digital word, that dirty D, I like that. You know, it's very important that we accept it. And if you take a look, there's a comment here. Chris, shout out to Chris Dudley for always showing support. You know, malls and shopping centers are no longer enough to be destinations to assume it will drive shoppers to your doors. Wow.
Very good point, Chris. But I want to go back to something that you just said, because I think this is really, really, really important. I think it's the thing that we're missing. Now, those of us who have kids under the age of 20, we understand this. But if you've worked in a practice for, 30, 40 years and you don't have access to people under the age of 20, you don't understand that these children are digitally native, which means everything that they can do digitally, they will never, ever do physically if they can avoid it, ever.
Yep.
And all Warby did was just put a door where they were. And you know what? You're right. Maybe if they had not done that, more people wouldn't have been motivated. That door probably should have been there a long time before Warby came around. I mean, we could have done it before they did. We just decided we didn't want to, because we prefer to take care of these people in our office. And there's a lot of reasons why that's right. I am not here to say that you should be blocking your patients from your care. I'm just here to say that just like you want to be empathetic to people who are blind, who can't really see, you're going to make your business accessible by making it accessible for those who can't see. If they can't hear, you're going to make it accessible for those who can't hear. If they have a wheelchair, you have accessibility there. But what if they prefer and only insist on digital access? How are you making your business accessible to those people? Because those people are about to rule the world.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, I have a 5-year-old son, and we were at a hotel one day and there was just like a regular telephone there, and he was just looking at it and it didn't light up and he couldn't push a button and he couldn't watch a video on it. And he's like, "Daddy, what is this thing?" I'm like, "Dude, it's a phone." And he's never seen it before, so he doesn't know anything about it. And I have a niece that's 11 years old and she now has an iPhone. And, even being part of that digital world and I'm texting, she's now just, dictate or using diction to send her text messages and things like that. I mean, the world is changing. The way that people consume this digital world is changing as well. So you can't even look at it from a broad view. You really have to get into the weeds to understand it and to look at that patient and see how they're communicating and what you're doing in your office to be able to connect with them greatly, because it's what we've done over the last year. Next year, it's going to be a completely different wave. And it just seems like in this digital world, it just moves so much faster than what we've seen previously.
I have only been working on this metaverse for about 6 months. And in 6 months, I built an entire virtual world. And I don't have $1 million budget to do it. Some people do. I built a city. I built an event center. I built shops. I've got people renting them. I mean, in 6 months, you just don't, there is no time to be complacent. You don't understand how fast this is coming. It's so crazy. I can't even believe it. Like I didn't even know the metaverse existed. I just peeled a little layer off because I wanted to add a better experience to the people coming to my vision show, because they were coming and they were kind of getting what they needed. But the vendors who were supporting me, they weren't getting that access to the buyers. The buyers were coming. I saw them coming. They were telling me they were coming, but they weren't buying. And I just had this hunch that it was because it wasn't a native buying environment. Even though the vendors were there, we had these little booths. It was really great. We had like lounge, bougie lounge, the whole 9 yards. It did not feel native. People wanted something native. So I started this whole thing designing a trade show that looked like an actual trade show to see if that would kind of put people into an environment that they would feel comfortable enough in, that they would be able to use that in lieu of a physical experience, not to replace it. What we're replacing is nothing. Okay. We're providing this to people who don't typically go to physical trade shows at all, or who go to a physical trade show and get only about 60 to 70% of the things ticked off their list. And the few that they missed were really important. So they come back to finish. So you can fit your virtual and digital everything, whether it be trade shows, retail stores, seeing your doctor, you can fit it into the physical things that you have. And when you have your own metaverse experience as an optometrist or an optician or any other business owner, you can decide how much of your business that you want to make accessible virtually, digitally, and physically. So you can set those rules, just like with telemedicine. There's no one that has a recipe for telehealth that says it's exactly this. Those that have started exploring this are probably blown away at the possibilities. This is really no different. You really get to shape the ideal patient experience, and you just have a new set of tools.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the metaverse, I mean, the way you just put it, I think about marketing, right? You have your old school way of mailing things, postcards, but then you have your social media to be able to connect. The best practices know how to have that hybrid approach and use both of those to get patients into their exam lane and be able to market their brand. So you can kind of look at it in the same way. But communication is key. Now, something I want to switch gears here a little bit. Um, Having communication will really keep patients held to the practice, really keep people healthier if it's done in the right way and people feel comfortable. But let's talk about how the metaverse can really make things better just overall, because I think we're missing that piece. I think, to your point, some people think, it's going to replace certain things, but it's just really going to make certain things better. It's going to complement it. So how can the metaverse really make life better for all of us as eye care professionals?
That is such a great question. And when we as a team developed the concept of better, it was very recently. And it was because I used to say, Daryl, Dr. Glover, I'd love for you to be a client of mine. I'd love to build an optometry practice for you. And it's going to be better because you're going to be able to communicate with your patients. And it's going to be better because you're going to be able to use it to kind of promote your practice in a new way. I would come up with all of these ways. And it was really challenging to get the person that I was speaking with in this scenario. Was you as my kind of, as my role play, but this individual to understand my concept of better. And it dawned on me. That's what I'm envisioning better to be. But I'm going to use that term again. I started flipping the lens around and I said, look, I'm not going to tell you what better is. You tell me what is better. And you can do that for your community. You can, and you don't even have to do a survey monkey or something like that. Hire someone who knows how to do good SEO keyword research, because everything that you need to know about the unanswered needs of your community can be boiled down in search queries. That's why Google keeps changing their algorithm. It's a little word called intent that not a lot of people understand. But what basically Google has done over the course of the last 5 years is they've said, I don't want to be a bad matchmaker. I don't want to keep trying to assume if you say shoes that you mean Louis Vuitton, 12-inch stilettos with a diamond tip shoe. That's Charlene. That ain't Daryl. Daryl wants different shoes. So when you Google stuff, you don't say anything broad. You don't say, I want shoes. You don't say, I want eye care. You don't say, I want an event. You are super, super, super specific. And that is because in that moment, you're imagining a better whatever it is, and you're asking Google for the answers. In this particular example, patient care is no different. But you've got to be able to really ask these people what they believe is better before you even begin to dream or think about how you're going to provide it for them.
Wow. That was heavy, Charlene. No, because think about it. A lot of times we get caught up in listening to the forums. We get caught up going on Twitter. We get caught up on a trendy word. We get caught up on what we think might be the best option. But how many times are we actually going to the patients and actually listening to what they say that's going to make things better? And even sometimes when we ask questions and send surveys, we're sending surveys or presenting questions with responses that we want to hear, right? But we're not really thinking about the lens of the patient, what's going to make things better. I don't know if maybe it should just be one of those open-ended questions, and just let them fill it in. That way you can get the true answer, right?
Here's the thing.
Really elevate it.
Well, I don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Fire away. No, fire away.
Here's the really interesting thing. People will push back when you do that, but you've got to, and I'm a talker. Okay, there's no shortage of people understanding that. I love to talk, but in the subject of better, in a conversation, talking about communication, if I truly want to know what is better to you, then the only thing I can do is listen. And I've got to be patient because there's a very good chance that nobody's ever asked you that question from a non-biased perspective before. So in a lot of cases, the first time you ask someone that question, you can almost see them afraid to answer because they're like, what are you looking for? No, I don't want you to think what I believe you feel is better. I really, truly want you to stop and think, what does better look like? And they're so ready to pounce on what you say is better to punk you and debunk it that they're like, oh, wait a second. So you're not going to give me any clues and you're not going to give me any leads. You're going to ask me to just stop and think if I was going to improve my own practice without any additional caveats or rules or guidelines or regulations, just me and my patients. What would I feel is better? You're going to come up with an answer that I probably would have never even imagined. It's never once has anybody answered that question when I didn't nudge them or prod them, and they've told me what I expected to hear. I've heard some pretty crazy things to that answer, and I've learned a lot. Here's the thing that I'm hearing more and more is, and it's a word that I gave you earlier, it's legacy. You mentioned it before, purpose. Nothing is more important to every breathing human on this planet than knowing that when their time has come, that they made the best use of the time that they were here. They are not thinking, oh, did I put enough money in my bottom line? Or, oh, did I get enough Google reviews? They're thinking, what is my mark?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And, legacy is a big deal. And we have to really keep that. Well, for me, I keep it top of mind because I have 2 kids, right? And I want to make sure that I'm creating a legacy that's going to really impact their future. But then also I have a lot of students out there, a lot of colleagues, a lot of family that's looking up to me to make a change. And I got to make sure that I make that change and create that legacy that I want to. This has been powerful stuff. I mean, having the right communication, defining what better truly is, not from your personal perspective, but from the patient's perspective. These are 2 key things that the metaverse can clearly help you with to elevate your practice and keep your practice whole and be prepared for this digital world that's going to take us by storm over the next couple of years, hell, over the next couple of months. I don't even know where to go. Like, I'm normally not speechless during an interview, but this is just some mind-blowing stuff because I like the digital world. I feel like you can do so much with it. I just feel like in eye care, we don't leverage it enough, right? And I feel like we have the best industry to be able to do that. We have a medical side and we have a retail side. And you look at the metaverse, to be able to bring both of those worlds together and explain what will happen if you don't wear your glasses and simulate something. I mean, like, just think about how game-changing that is. Think about how much of an impact that'll leave on that patient. For patient care, we have to always make an emotional connection. And when you can paint a picture, make a patient a part of that picture and have communication and understand how to communicate better, that is just going to change the world completely.
Yeah, and I think optometrists especially have to start thinking outside of their 4 walls, because there is a conversation to be had about sustainability. And if you're really truly concerned about the sustainability of society, then you have to start looking at what do your children need and not what do you need. You want to know what really drives me every day. And believe me, this is not a rewarding thing all the time. It's very difficult. I'm like fighting this battle without a safety net. I don't really have any, big sponsors behind me. Most of the vendors that I have been with me since the beginning. It's very hard to get new people to embrace this. I have to keep fighting. But you know what I do? I do it for my kids because one day they're going to want to embrace this world. And if I'm not here to impact it, influence it today, and I let larger corporations than me, much bigger than anyone in this industry. I mean, do I really want Facebook deciding the virtual world that my kids are going to live in? I don't think so. Like, I'm going to have whatever impact I can have. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've gotten pretty far. I am not just exceeding at this in the optical and eye care world. We're really starting to get noticed outside of optical and eye care. And that is going to provide a very interesting gateway for our industry to verticals that we really want to get to know. Gaming, online gaming. These people are looking at video games all day long, with or without any sort of visual acuity needs. You could probably convince them to wear either blue light lenses to protect their eyes, or some cool new types of lens filters that are out there to give them that eagle vision that they want. They want to be the best shooter. They want to see the colors, and they don't, like, some people don't care if you tell them you're going to have a better contrast, but guess who does? Video gamers. Anybody in the sports world, virtual digital artists. This is a whole new category. And let me ask you this. What's the first thing you do when a patient sits down? You do an intake, right?
Yep.
You find out about their background.
Absolutely.
These are the jobs that these people are doing. Don't you want to know when somebody says that I'm a, I develop NFT marketplaces, and, I work with the Web3 industry to develop utility for, philanthropists, that you want to understand what the heck they're talking about, so you can at least have an intelligent conversation with them. And you want to talk about specific use cases. Look at Starbucks. They just announced that they're launching their Web3 strategy. They laid out a whole roadmap. That's pretty complex. Like, the complexities of marketing in this new world.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with Facebook, you better read a book. This world is not coming any slower than you'd like it to, and you better learn, because it's going to be complicated. And but it's fun. It challenges your mind. It makes you sharp. It makes you present. It makes you, we think inside of these like very comfortable patterns in our lives, and when we break them, something really bizarre and amazing happens to you as a human. You just think at a different level, and it's probably the second best decision I ever made. The first was taking that entrepreneurial leap of faith, and the second was believing enough in myself to build this thing.
I love it. And Chris is loving it too. He's saying amen. He mentioned earlier that you're a visionary as well, and I agree with him 100%. And I can't wait to see, 5-10 years out, what everything's going to look like. I want to circle back to something that you just touched on. You were talking about, just diving into these patients' lives, or folks that deal with NFTs and things like that. But I want to paint a picture for all my colleagues out there that's listening and watching this live stream and podcast. Imagine being able to go into the metaverse with your patient and see what their life looks like through the day. Imagine seeing them at job and how they're using their eyes. Imagine seeing them walk through their home and where their computer monitor is at the eye level. Imagine seeing what they eat, the nutrition. Imagine being able to walk through their lifestyle the entire day. How game-changing will that be? How game-changing will that be when you prescribe true solutions to accommodate their lifestyle? You see, we really got to start thinking about this, because with this metaverse and the way we can have these digital twins, we can really be able to put ourselves in that same position that they're in and simulate what that solution will look like. But most importantly, we'll be able to capture the problem that we see that they may not even be aware of. I mean, my mind is going right now, and I'm just thinking like, man, we need to jump on this like yesterday, because this is going to elevate our patient care.
Yeah, but now you're talking about like a blend of metaverse, which when I use the term metaverse, I talk only about the virtual world. One thing I want to clarify, that I don't typically do this, is if you go into other metaverse worlds, like Decentraland, Sandbox, or a few, the first thing you'll notice is you have to connect your wallet. Most people don't even have a wallet, and it begins and ends there. They're like, I don't know what a wallet is. I'm not connecting my wallet to you. I don't know you. I ain't doing this. So we made sure that we did not have any of that typical, what makes it true Web3, which means that it is enabled through some sort of crypto wallet, transaction experience. We avoided that. In our retail area, we will allow our retailers to become crypto enabled. We allow onboarding and offboarding of fiat, crypto, ETH, you name it. We're very compatible. There's ways to do that, but we strongly believe that stripping that all away and making that a provider's decision is the right thing to do, because whether or not your community and your audience and your patient base or whatever, whether or not they're ready to transact in that way. So we didn't want the transactions to interfere with the overall experience. But when you talk about blockchain, where if I'm a patient and I decide I've got 15 providers in my patient care network. I've got an eye doctor, I've got an ophthalmologist, I've got, a cardiologist, I've got all these different people that are trying to put each little piece together to draw a puzzle. I could absolutely work with a company like the Optical Metaverse that gets really good funding from somebody who says, look, Charlene, can you figure this out for me? And we develop patient records on the blockchain, in which case the patient would have direct access to their own information, and then they can share it with you and anybody else that they want to share it with, so you guys can communicate in real time. We're actually working on this solution right now, and we're developing a scope so we can present it to the right people to get proper funding. And the one challenge I had, which I just solved, is I needed one optometrist to tell me what a dream patient, what better looks like from their perspective for the patient, because in this particular case I can't really talk to patients. So there are ways out there to specifically develop processes, and it doesn't have to be with a metaverse, that allow you to get the patient from where they are, to meet them where they are, and to still facilitate that journey through your practice, and find that really amazing best of both worlds scenario where you're giving them what they want that's most convenient for them, without accidentally letting them go somewhere where they're going to do something that isn't good for them. It's not easy. You really need good technology to keep that finger on the pulse, and keep some, flexible guidelines in place that you can kind of include the patient and their care. You don't have to be that police person. You could be their partner in their care. But right now, there's not a lot of ways for them to do that, because there's not even a lot of ways for you to share that information with them.
Yeah. No, look, this is a complex topic, and it's complex because we don't have enough education about it. And I think, Charlene, we should have, a continuous dialogue in regards to the metaverse, the optical metaverse, and, how you grow this organization, how you grow this metaverse, because it's the future. And I want all my eye care professional friends out there to have this top of mind, but also to know how to leverage this in their practice and how to communicate with their patients to make it a better experience at the end of the day. For all my colleagues that are going to Vision Expo, Charlene is actually giving a talk at Vision Expo. What time is that talk at Vision Expo, Charlene?
It's Thursday at it's 11:30 on September 15th. I'm going to be joined by a millennial optometrist and a millennial fairly new to the industry. He's actually a frame manufacturer for Lucid, Harrison Gross. So two millennials from the industry. One is a second-year optometrist. She's been with me since the very beginning. Shout out to Dr. Irina Yakovin. Love you, girl. You're amazing. You're the future of this industry, and I'm so proud of you. And Harrison Gross, who's one of our vendors, he's also a disruptor in the fact that he's introducing smart eyewear to an industry that's making them embrace digital again. So we'll be on the stage. Thank you to the Vision Council for inviting us. It was just absolutely amazing to be given this opportunity. So we could talk about the metaverse, and, from all of the standpoints that we've discussed today, Daryl, like from a patient standpoint, how can you prepare for the patients of the future? The time is really now. There's really not a lot of time left to prepare for this. These people are banging on the door of something else, and it's not your front door. So you got to create a doorway somewhere else. And I think the metaverse is a much better door to create than a digital door, because all of those controls that you want to have by looking at the way they're behaving in this virtual setting and interacting with them the way that you would like to, it's much more feasible in a virtual setting with all the tools that are available in Web3 than it is in Web2. Web2 is super difficult, super limiting, super expensive. For some reason, developing in Web3, it's not, it is, there's a cost involved. It's not cheap, but you're customizing everything on your own. So you're able to not look at like WordPress and say, okay, what plugin can I use today? Believe me, I've done them all. It's annoying. I'm sure you've done this. You're like, great. I know my website's crashed. My developer is answering the phone. There's, I think that people who just gave up on Web 2 are going to be able to come back to Web 3 with a fresh set of eyes. I want to leave with this one point. I don't make this point enough, and it's an important point. When I talk about better, my vision show in the Optical Metaverse is an example of that. Every show that Irina and I have done, we've taken the feedback from the audience, some good, some bad, some great, some not so great, and we've evolved it every single time. And those that have been there, they know that. the final result that we have today is not because we thought this stuff up and we just had a better idea of what we thought the industry needed. It's because people from all aspects, different countries, different aspects of the industry, different viewpoints, different personalities and cultural, viewpoints, we were just like kind of a melting pot of opticianry, optometry, ophthalmology, frame vendors, lens vendors, corporate, independent. We really stopped that a long time ago with that whole independent rah, rah, rah. And we wanted to have that position of inclusivity. And I think the end result is something really, really special because everyone had a hand in it. So we're not here to say that we know better. We're just here to say that we've listened to what your colleagues believe is better. And we've just put ourselves in a position to be able to build that and deliver it.
Yeah. I did a podcast last week, and shout out to the Vision Council. I know you mentioned them earlier. And that podcast last week was growing the eye care industry together. And that's what the Vision Council is known for. And that's what you're known for. And that's why you two are collaborating at the show next week, because you understand that the world of eye care is changing. It's forever evolving, and it's moving at a rapid pace. And we have to continue to put the message out there so that our colleagues, our friends, our family understands that we got to go to the next level. The time is now, and we got to have better communication. We got to create better experiences, and we got to just make sure that our patients understand what's going on and our colleagues understand what's going on. Charlene, this has been fantastic. For those that may want to learn more about the Optical Metaverse, if you don't mind maybe sharing a website or how they can get in touch with you and learn more about this entire Optical Metaverse that's out there.
Absolutely. So there's a link that's going on in the feed. You can go to myvisionshow.com and you can register there. We have a very interactive community, so you can go onto Facebook and just search the Optical Metaverse. You'll find our Facebook group, which is managed by Candy Garrett. She's very active. She's actually on the Opticians Association board with Michigan, as well as Dr. Rita Jacobin, who's on the board of LACO. So these are key opinion leaders in the industry who are there to answer your questions in real time. If you want to get involved, let us know. We're always, Marisol Rodriguez, shout out to her. She's recently nominated as Most Influential Woman of the Year this year. She's come on board to start kind of being an advocate from a young and up and coming optician's perspective. And on LinkedIn, on my personal profile under Charlene Nichols, that's where I'm most active right now. We're really working at keeping all of our social media doors present and active. And but please come and share your feedback. We welcome it all.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you again, Charlene. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your story. And I really appreciate you just walking us through your journey. There's highs, there's lows. You walked us through that. You're going to inspire an entrepreneur out there that's trying to make that jump, but they couldn't really make that jump. Now they have what it takes because they got that inspiration. You're going to inspire or continue to inspire all our eye care colleagues out there that want to take it to the next level of communication, that want to make it better for their patients by jumping into the world of the metaverse. I just want to say thank you so much to all my colleagues out there that are watching and listening. Stay healthy, stay positive, stay blessed. Until next time, peace. All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the Defocus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And if it did, be sure to give us 5 stars. And make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you named it. And our handle is at Defocus Media on all platforms. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020.